Joining us now is Congressman Adam Schiff. Congressman, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Rachel.
So you raised the prospect of obstruction of justice right away today in response to this guilty plea and this cooperation agreement. In what way is that a concern to you right now?
Well, I raised that for a couple of reasons. First, Manafort tried to essentially suborn perjury of other witnesses. He tried to witness tamper, and he today pled guilty to conspiring to do that, to obstruct justice by tampering with witnesses. And what he learned from that is Bob Mueller's team is pretty damn good, and he got caught, and he paid a big penalty for that in his guilty plea today. So he knows, I think, that if he is less than truthful and less than complete, and Bob Mueller finds out about it, he's going to pay a big price. As Dan Goldman was saying, he had to admit not only to the universities in that courthouse, but also to the 10 charges that the jury hung on, which means that if his cooperation turns out to be less than completely truthful, that not only can he be tried on those 10 counts, but his admissions can be introduced. Basically, it's the nail in the coffin. There won't be another hung jury on those 10 counts. So I think he ought to have gotten the message loud and clear. But also, if he has information pertinent to whether the president is obstructing justice, Mueller's going to want to hear that. And also, I think we have to be concerned with the prospect you mentioned, which is the president might choose to obstruct justice and try to take away any incentive that Manafort has to cooperate by pardoning him. And if he were to do that, then in terms of this cooperation agreement and all the rest of that, that really goes away. The case goes away. There's no repercussion for a lack of cooperation if Manafort gets pardoned. So I don't think we're beyond that possibility.
If the president did issue that kind of a pardon for Mr. Manafort, I think about the politics of this. And I think about accountability for the president. I think about his susceptibility to potential impeachment. Paul Manafort is not somebody who has been a rallying cry among the president's supporters, even his most rabid supporters in the conservative media and on Capitol Hill. Nobody is saying that Paul Manafort was the real hero here and he's been railroaded and everything that he did was fine. And this is a witch hunt where Paul Manafort, this innocent guy, got caught up in it. There hasn't been that kind of a charge on the right, at least yet. If the president did pardon him, and it looked transparently like the president was pardoning him to stop Manafort from giving the special counsel evidence and testimony that might implicate the president in crimes. Do you think it's possible that Congress might look upon that as something that should be investigated as a potential high crime and misdemeanor, that they would want to hold him accountable for that there would be hearings?
Well, I certainly think that Bob Mueller would consider it another big piece of evidence that the president is obstructing justice, and it becomes part of the report that Mueller likely presents to the Department of Justice and Rod Rosenstein that gets presented to Congress. So it would be yet another strong fact in favor of the president being held accountable for obstruction of justice. And I think that if he goes down this road, it won't be, as you say, because there's this rallying cry among his base to help poor Paul Manafort, but rather because the president is motivated, as he always is, by naked self-interest. Remember, Manafort was part of a joint defense agreement, may still be part of a joint defense agreement with the Trump team. That means for the last months or a year, he's been sharing information. The defense team presumably knows much of what he has to say. Now, they have to worry about what he has not told them, but they may have tried to align their stories in terms of the meeting at Trump Tower. So they may be aware of things that Paul Manafort has to say that could really incriminate the president. That would be the #1 reason the president might pardon him. The last thing I mentioned, Rachel, which I think is very significant, and if Manafort does cooperate, could be enormously helpful to Mueller, and that is at the same time the Russians are reaching out to the campaign in that Trump Tower meeting and offering the Trump campaign help, dirt on Hillary Clinton. Manafort is reaching out in the other direction to the Kremlin through people like Oleg Deripaska, offering the Kremlin help, information about the Trump campaign in exchange for money he thinks he's owed from Ukraine. So I would like to know, I think Bob Mueller would like to know, I think the country would like to know what happened at that cross-section where the campaign is reaching out to the Russians reaching out to the campaign chairman is in a pivotal place to tell us what happened to all of those communications before, during, and after the Trump Tower meeting, before, during, and after those emails running back and forth where he's trying to be made whole for his work for Deripaska.
Congressman Adam Schiff, the top Democratic member of the House Intelligence Committee.